Hello, everyone. It is so good to be with you all today. I am Lisa Beare, the Minister of Education and Childcare, and I'd like to start by recognizing that we are on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. And I am so excited to be here with you on Pink Shirt Day. Are you all excited? Yeah. Oh, so happy to have you. I want to welcome the grade 4 and 5 students from James Bay Community School who've joined us to learn about Pink Shirt Day. And we have the junior choir from Reynolds Secondary who are going to perform a song that I think really embodies the spirit of the occasion, and I'm very excited to hear it. And I want to acknowledge that we have MLAs from all across government who are joining us here today as well to stand in solidarity against bullying. I now will invite Councillor Sherry Thomas of the Esquimalt Nation to start us off. Councillor Thomas, thank you.
Aikwichil, everybody. That means good day. Haichka for being here for this special day. I am honored to be here to represent Songhees and Esquimalt Nation. Welcome to our territory. Haichka for this day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for the welcome and for joining us today. Now, I get the great pleasure of introducing our Premier, David Eby. Premier, please.
Thanks, Minister. It's so good to see all of you students here today. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for wearing your pink shirts. I have a question for you. Have you ever seen someone be bullied before at school? Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask, has anyone ever been bullied before? Maybe. That's a harder question. Has anyone ever maybe behaved in a way that you look back and you thought, wow, maybe I was a bit of a bully in that situation? Yeah? Yeah. I have. That's a harder one to put your hand up for, isn't it? Because I think we all want to be good friends. And we all want to recognize that the things that are different about us are what make us special. And we want to make everyone feel welcome at school and at work and our community, because that's how we succeed as a province. That's how we succeed at our school. That's how we succeed at home. So I'm so proud of you, for all of you being here, because what you're doing by wearing a pink shirt is you're making a commitment, aren't you? You're promising to be a good friend. And what are you going to do if you see somebody who's being bullied in the future? What are you going to do? Any of our grade 3, 4s? Yeah, you're going to stand up for them. What are you going to do? Stand up for them and stop it. Wow. Tell a teacher, sure. I hope that all of us can make the commitment today that if we see bullying, we're going to step up and stop it, because everyone deserves to be safe in our communities. I'm so glad you're here. You're setting such a good example for kids, parents, friends, and family across the province. And I'm really glad to be wearing a pink shirt with you today. You know the story about Pink Shirt Day? Yeah? You learned about it in school? It was about a boy who was wearing a pink shirt and got bullied for it. I just think of how brave he and his friends were to step up and start Pink Shirt Day, and I'm really glad for it. So thanks for joining us. Have a great Pink Shirt Day. And let's make this province welcoming for every single person who lives here. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Premier, for that strong message. And thank you so much to the students who used their voices and spoke up and talked about how we're going to all stand together to stand against bullying in the future. That's such an important message. Thank you. Pink Shirt Day is 18 years old today. It was 18 years ago that we all decided that every student has a right to thrive, to feel included, to be safe. And now Pink Shirt Day reaches all across the world. It's promoting bravery, it's promoting compassion and kindness. And today we're here talking to you about those commitments and those core values. And it is so important that we continue to do more. And that is why we need everyone to come together to stand up against bullying and discrimination. And with the high rise of hateful rhetoric in our communities, Pink Shirt Day is more important than ever, which is why we've taken action to combat hate wherever we find it, whether it be sexual extortion through provinces' resources like our Erase website to put safe lenses in and access zones in schools. We are doing everything we can to protect you as students, to make sure that you feel safe, that you feel included, and that you can thrive. And our government will never back down from addressing the real challenges that you as kids are facing. And we need you to do the work too. We need all to take action to make this world a better, more safer place. And thank you for doing that today by being here and standing up with us. Now, in that spirit, we have a junior choir from Reynolds Secondary who's going to perform a song that is absolutely perfect for Pink Shirt Day. I won't spoil it, but I invite El Aquino, who's an awesome student and choir member, who's going to come up and tell us why they chose this song and how it relates to Pink Shirt Day. El, please.
Hello, my name is Elle, and I am a member of the Reynolds Junior Choir, made up of grade 9 and 10 students. I'd like to thank the ministry for honoring us with the invite to sing today. We will be performing Time After Time, arranged by Andy Beck, featuring a solo by Imogen Gordon-Wilson. The lyrics of the song reminded us of a friend you can always lean on, a sort of kindness that we could all use, an anchor during good and bad. Even when you feel lost, and when the world seems against you, there will be someone there, time after time.
We're so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. We're just fixing some audio with the piano, so it'll be a minute. Are you like freaking out on the stage right now? Good. You look good. You look good. Are your parents here? Some of them? Yeah. Should we wave to them?
lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. After my picture fades and darkness has turned to gray, watching through windows, you're wondering if I'm okay. Secrets stolen from deep inside. The drum beats out of time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I will be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I will be waiting. Time after time.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the students of Reynolds, the junior choir, for that unforgettable performance. Unforgettable for a number of reasons, but thank you. That was just beautiful. Thank you for inspiring all of us today through your song, and thank you for all joining us today to stand up against bullying. Thank you, James Bay Elementary, for coming out. We were so happy to have you here. Thank you, everyone. Happy Pink Shirt Day. Thank you.
All of you. Obviously, the issue of the threat from the U.S. president to Canada, to our sovereignty, to our economy, is front of mind for so many British Columbians right now, and it certainly is for our government. I was in a meeting with the Prime Minister and premiers just this morning discussing the issue. The federal government provided us a comprehensive update on the actions taken at the border. It's my hope that the work that they've done has resulted in, it's hard to tell, but has resulted in a delay in any suggestion of implementation of across-the-board tariffs by the United States against Canada. And the actions are significant. I made the commitment to the Prime Minister and to his fentanyl czar that if they've identified ways in which the province can take additional action to crack down on organized crime, to support this effort, we are there, we're ready to go. And I am very pleased to see the action around anti-money laundering, specifically the establishment of the Committee of Banks and Police working together to use information gathered by Canada's anti-money laundering agency, FinTrack. This is long overdue and very welcome development. But again, I'll stress, by no means justifies the tariffs that we've seen. I've met with Indigenous leadership over the last week, with our agricultural task force, with the tariff and economic team. And the theme of all of those meetings is making sure that regardless of this uncertainty from the United States, that we are preparing to retaliate in the event that tariffs are imposed on us, that we are strengthening our economy and moving projects ahead, and that we are diversifying our markets. And the discussion with the agriculture sector was particularly helpful as food security, the cost of food, especially with the weakened Canadian dollar, in the event the tariffs are imposed, and already some of the impacts that we're seeing is front of mind for so many British Columbian families. So with that, happy to take any questions that you may have.
We'll start on the ground. We'll go with Rob Buffum, CTV.
Hi, Premier. I just wanted to clarify as best I could. So in your meeting, was it your understanding that the Prime Minister was of the view that the steps that had been taken were enough to placate Trump on this? I ask partly because he said at his cabinet meeting today it was going to be very difficult to get his kind of green light to not going ahead with these tariffs based on the border. And also, are there some new steps on the border that were discussed today that are being implemented?
Yeah, I won't speak for the Prime Minister, but my understanding of what he was attempting to convey to the premiers was that significant steps have been taken, that information has been shared with U.S. decision makers, and including through himself directly to the President, as well as through Dom LeBlanc, that there has been the establishment of a new anti-money laundering committee, that there has been significant work done in establishing partnerships behind the scenes between American and Canadian law enforcement to assist in rapid response, those teams that have been spoken about publicly already. And it was his hope that that would be sufficient. I don't think anybody knows what is truly in the mind of the President except for the President himself. And so it's certainly my hope that it is sufficient. But what I would really like, I think what all Canadians would like, and all Americans as well, especially in the business community, would like to have this threat removed entirely, to sit down at the table, to work out whatever trade issues need to be resolved with the Americans, and to move on, to resolve this uncertainty.
By way of follow-up, at the same meeting, Trump referenced the date of April 2nd for tariffs. He also mentioned March 4th. So I'm wondering, as you've said, it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, but how difficult does it make it for someone like yourself or others in our province to prepare for tariffs with that lack of certainty? We've got a budget as well coming out on the same day, perhaps. And specifically on forestry, Trump made the point today, he articulated twice, Canadians won't be able to sell their lumber to us with these tariffs in place.
On the issue of forestry, I underlined for the Prime Minister the importance of understanding the softwood lumber duties that are significantly increasing for Canadian producers need to be a critical part of the discussion. The uncertainty that the President is creating, I believe, is part of the overall strategy. This is actually a deliberate strategy that he has to weaken Canada, to reduce the likelihood that people will invest in our country. Which is why tariffs or no tariffs, our approach will be the same, to redouble all of our efforts to diversify away from the United States, find new customers for BC goods, to get those projects across the line that can't be simply moved to the United States because they're inextricably tied to things that are in this province, and will create jobs here and form that strong base for our economy. And you know, another issue that I raised, I know the opposition had raised the Deltaport thermal coal as a potential non-tariff measure to respond to U.S. aggression. Raised that issue with the Prime Minister as a potential federal non-tariff target as well. We need to be all hands on deck on this. We shouldn't be divided at the provincial level, at the federal level. If there are things that we can do to respond to the Americans, we should do it. If there are things we can do to strengthen our economy and diversify our markets, we're going to do it.
Reminder to callers on the line to press *1 to enter the queue. Next, we'll be on the ground with Katie DeRosa, CBC.
You're meeting with the Prime Minister. I mean, he won't be the Prime Minister. There's a leadership review. Do you think that Donald Trump is capitalizing on that uncertainty, moving the date again, but without moving the benchmark, but without any specific asks other than the vague border security request? So how do the first ministers respond to that sort of uncertainty with the leadership gap with the Liberals?
Well, the nature of this is so destabilizing. That when we were talking about this issue this morning, the President hadn't, to my knowledge, yet made his remarks, or certainly his remarks were not, I wasn't aware of them during the discussion this morning. This is a rapidly evolving issue. There are multiple tariff threats against Canada. They're changing days. It's not even totally clear from his statement what he meant. This is no way to run a country. I can't understand if the uncertainty, the contradictions, the inconsistency, and encourage the president, because I believe it's the case across Canada, that we're prepared to sit down, to have a formal discussion, country to country, and get this resolved. I am very much looking forward to the federal Liberals resolving the uncertainty within their party about who's leading, and to get the new Prime Minister in place so that we can continue this work.
And Katie, for a follow-up.
The Surrey Board of Trade is calling for action from the province. They want a directory of Canadian suppliers so that people know they're buying local, an economic plan specific to the South Fraser area, and a halt to new taxes for businesses. What do you think of these ideas, specifically the directory?
Yeah, these are all obviously appropriate and helpful suggestions from the Surrey Board of Trade, and I would say they'd be reflected in boards of trade and chambers of commerce, business improvement associations across the province. The uncertainty, the impact on local businesses is significant, local communities is significant, and so that's why we're working with business, many business associations through our tariff and economic task force, and the goal of that, and it's being realized, is to identify these kinds of opportunities, to get them implemented quickly and get them rolling. We are looking at assisting British Columbians in being able to identify local products, finding ways that we can support that. I know many local merchants have taken that on themselves. They put little Canadian flags, BC flags on products so that people can know what they're buying. I very much welcome and encourage that, and we'll do all we can to support the amazing and inspirational effort of all Canadians to support local companies. I've heard so many stories of BC and Canadian companies whose products have run out and that they've had to add shifts because British Columbians are buying Canadian first. It's very heartwarming in this very challenging time.
Next, we have Alec Lazenby, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. As a follow-up to Katie's question, Nova Scotia recently introduced legislation that would take several concrete steps to reduce their own barriers to interprovincial trade. Is BC considering something similar? I know several experts have come out and said that, if all provinces and territories were to take up something like this, then it would go a long way to reducing those barriers.
Yes, in advance of Nova Scotia introducing their legislation, our public service had reached out to understand what they were going to be bringing forward. I'm very grateful to Tim Houston and his government for assisting our team in understanding what they were going to bring forward. So the goal of that was to ensure that British Columbia has tools in place that mesh with and work with the initiatives of other provinces. There is a meeting federally of all of the ministers responsible for internal trade. Minister Diana Gibson is representing us at that meeting this week. At that table, I'm hopeful we'll come out with some significant movement on this. British Columbia continues to push at my level, at the First Minister's meeting level, as well as at the ministerial meeting, for a mutual recognition approach. This is where if it's good enough for your province, it's good enough for our province, and with a limited list of exceptions where necessary, but ideally none. What we need to do is start acting like a country, where if you're licensed for a particular profession, or if you're producing a particular good in some part of the province, that you're able to sell it without difficulty, or sell your services without difficulty across BC.
Back to Alec for a follow-up.
You said you had raised the issue of thermal coal with the Prime Minister and the other premiers. What would that look like if you were to bring that in? I know the Conservatives have made their own points about what that should look like, but in terms of the consideration of yourself, what would that look like if BC were to bring it into play? And what was the response to you bringing that up at the table?
Prime Minister is always generous in noting that my comments have been noted. He noted my comments. What that actually would look like is, I mean, we're having a look at it, but it's federal railways. It's an export product that goes to a federal port. It appears to be squarely federal jurisdiction, but we are aware that the federal government is looking at non-tariff measures that could send a message to the United States. These are coal products that are coming from Montana and Wyoming through British Columbia for export to a global market, because Western ports along the U.S. won't carry that product. It is an opportunity for a product that the feds have already said they're going to phase out by 2030 to use it to send a message to the United States about the level of cooperation and integration of our two economies. And I say any opportunity, we should take it in the event that the Americans decide to attack our families in this way. And I continue to support that, and this seems like an opportunity potentially for the federal government to do that.
Justine Hunter, Globe and Mail.
You talked about a couple of weeks ago you were not going to go ahead with the grocery rebate because we can't afford the relief because of the uncertainty. Should British Columbians be expecting more targeted relief, perhaps to those industries that are most deeply impacted if these tariffs go ahead? How do you plan a budget around addressing those with financial kind of compensation?
Yeah, the same challenges that that business faces right now around making decisions around investment and what the path forward is very much faced by our finance minister in putting this budget together as a result of the tariff threat. The profound impact that it would have on provincial royalty revenues as well as tax revenues, and the increased demand of social services responding to families facing a higher cost of food will be significant. It'll be significant in the United States as well, but we'll really be feeling it here. And so it does make it very challenging. So the finance minister is doing her best to put the budget together in this environment. And if we have to, we'll go back to the legislature to ensure that programs are in place to respond, because this issue is evolving so quickly. It's hard to predict exactly where it will go.
Back to Justine for a follow-up.
The uncertainty, continued uncertainty, is having an impact on business and even investment decisions. How can you grow the economy if businesses are reluctant to put more money into growing business here instead of on the other side of the border where things would be more certain for them?
Yeah, I think the interesting piece for me has been to see the impact on business confidence in the United States as well. See a significant reduction in deal-making activity and investment by American companies. The uncertainty about the tariff environment and the integrated nature of our economies means that they don't know what it's going to mean, whether you're GM and you're assembling cars out of parts that travel back and forth across the border multiple times, or whether you're a home builder that relies on lumber to be able to build and facing potentially a 30 or 40% increase in that material that you can't get anywhere else. It's obviously profoundly challenging for business. For us here in the province, I mean, there's really nowhere else I'd rather be to face this threat if we have to face it than British Columbia, because we do have profound and significant access to the kinds of things that the world needs, whether it's lumber or whether it's critical minerals or metals or energy. We have access to those things. These are things that cannot be removed from British Columbia except by investing in British Columbia. And they are the kinds of products that you can put on a boat and are welcome anywhere in the world. And so we'll continue to do the work that we're doing to support manufacturing in the province, to help manufacturers find other markets, to support life sciences, the film sector, the tech sector, grow those parts of our economy. And we've got a list of 18 projects that we're fast-tracking to create jobs here in the province and ensure that while we're respecting Indigenous rights and maintaining high standards, we're getting shovels in the ground to create jobs and revenues for the province.
Next, we have a question from Wolf Detner, Black Press.
Yeah, excuse me. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Premier, you already talked about the uncertainty at the federal level, but any number of provinces are also going through their own political turmoil right now, including elections. Can you sort of comment on how the uncertainty in the political leadership in some of the provinces is impacting BC's ability, Canada's ability to find sort of a common front against the United States? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I learned with some degree of sadness about my friend Andrew Furey from Newfoundland stepping down, and obviously Dennis King from PEI as well. And kind of looking over my shoulder a little bit, honestly. A lot of premiers are going missing right now. First of all, I just wanted to say, with respect to Andrew Furey, how much I appreciated working with him. He was leading the way across Canada on low-carbon fuels and hydrogen. He signed an historic and amazing agreement with the province of Quebec to address an historic injustice against the province of Newfoundland that'll be paying dividends for the people of Newfoundland for generations to come. And I want to thank him and congratulate him on his work. The election cycles and the federal government leadership race definitely do take a toll on our ability to present a united front as a country. It's not ideal, but it is also unavoidable. And so what we've been doing is focusing as premiers on ensuring that we have that Team Canada approach across the country. And we're going to continue to do that. But it's true, and it's a challenge. These transitions, these turnovers do mean that collective memory is lost, and members are starting new at the table, and all these other challenges. It's not helpful, but it's reality. It's also why, I mean, frankly, it's bizarre that at this time of all times for the BC Conservatives to be introducing a non-confidence motion onto a throne speech that is actually itself a confidence motion in an attempt to drive to an election, which, by the way, they won't win that vote. But I think right now people need stability, they need consistency in government, and they need a plan, which we have and we're delivering on, to respond to and protect them and their families from this tariff threat.
A follow-up from Wolf.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Could you also weigh in on the last 48 hours in Conservative politics? And specifically, can you comment on the comments from Brent Chapman earlier this morning regarding Pink Shirt Day? Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll say this. It strikes me that the BC Conservatives are focusing on everything except what matters to British Columbians right now, which is this profound tariff threat. And the threat to our economy, the threat to our country presented by the president, the fact that they couldn't even all stand together and vote in favor of a Team Canada approach, retaliating against the red states that are bringing this to us, and condemning the tariffs, the fact that they couldn't even as a group agree to that and vote for that in the legislature, tells British Columbians where that party is at. All of this nonsense about from Mr. Chapman and about attacking residential school survivors and their accounts of what they experienced is profoundly unfortunate and hurtful and awful. But it's also an indication that they're just not focused on what matters to British Columbians, and we're staying focused on that. We're going to remain focused on that going forward, and we're not going to let it deter us from what needs to be done.
Next, we have Mary Griffin, Check News.
Hi, thanks, Premier. I'm going this afternoon to talk to an island-based company started by a UVic student. They export about 30% of their beeswax products down to the U.S. You've addressed how businesses can adapt, but what about these small little businesses that really rely on that link with the U.S.? Yeah,
thanks. There are some really significant threats to small businesses that ship to the U.S., particularly, and it sounds a bit technical, but it's the de minimis rule that allows these products to travel into the U.S. And not be stopped at the border for additional assessment by the U.S. Customs Service, and we allow the same here in Canada. There have been some moves by the president that indicate that this exemption that these businesses rely on is under threat. I know that it's front of mind for me and for premiers across Canada, all these small businesses that rely on that, and I know that it will be part of any discussion at the table as we move forward, hopefully at some point into grown-up sit-down negotiations about what the plan is going forward here.
Back to Mary for a follow-up.
Thank you. Last week, the community of Port Angeles welcomed the coho as it came in, docked for the first time, and they came out about 150 people saying, we love Canada, come down. There's a lot of debate among Islanders, British Columbians, Canadians about traveling south, and people have family. It's interesting how close everyone is linked, but would you support a sort of travel ban, or just suggesting that people don't travel if the tariffs are implemented as a way communities are going to feel that impact?
Look, I know it's hard for so many people. I have family myself in the U.S., and I know people have family and loved ones and business interests that they have to travel for. And an absolute rule is not going to work for everyone. We're too integrated. That's the whole point of our objection to what the U.S. is doing. But with that said, if you do have a choice about where you travel with your family, if you do have a choice about how you spend your money, strongly discourage people from going to the States until this is resolved. Anything we can do to put pressure on the Americans. Canadians spend billions in the United States on travel, and I know a lot of people are making that decision, and I'm hearing about it. But the other piece is about that Port Angeles event is it's been really nice to talk to actual real life Americans who are like, we don't understand why this is happening. We support Canadians. We like Canadians. This is ridiculous. And social media is not real life. The real Americans that I interact with just cannot understand why this is happening. They see Canada as a friend and an ally and, if nothing else, a benevolent and neutral neighbor. And they're really struggling with knowing why this is happening and just saying, like, I'm sorry about the president. I can't tell you how many people have said, I'm sorry about what the president's doing. I don't know why he's doing it. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm sure other Canadians are hearing that as well. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that although the president is doing these things, that Americans are our friends, and they have been for a long time, and they will be after this, and we'll get through this.
Next, we have a question from Les Lane, Times columnist.
Well, thanks. Premier, the talk about beefing up drug enforcement in BC, is that specific to drugs crossing the border, or is it going to be noticeable in terms of fighting drugs dealing in BC generally?
Yeah, we've increased resources for the RCMP to be able to go after organized crime and fentanyl production and drug dealing in the province. We've also put tools in place to allow and expand the ability to seize the assets of people who are apparently involved in illegal activity, money laundering, and so on through unexplained wealth orders, company transparency, and so on. One of the points I made this morning is that it's crucial for us across the country to have a standard regime that relates to this, so that law enforcement has the same tools all the way across Canada when it comes to provincial areas of responsibility, and really encourage the new fentanyl czar to assist provinces, including BC. Do we have a gap that another province has closed? Is there something we're doing in BC that they could be doing as well, so that we're all on the same page?
The standard model on drug enforcement in BC for years is that the police do their best and hold news conferences and show millions of quantities of drugs that are seized, and the suspects are out on bail before the news conference even starts. That's just standard practice and has been for years. Do you think that might change under the general beefing up that you say is underway?
So the instructions we've given to Crown Counsel in terms of our areas of responsibility, which don't include the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, is to identify repeat offenders and to do their best to detain them behind bars. The Controlled Drugs and Substances Act is prosecuted by federal prosecutors under federal legislation, and so I think it's distinctly possible that the federal government is looking at how that law is enforced, how their prosecutors act, and the arguments they make in front of the court. But I'm not aware of any specific initiatives.
Next, we have a question from Marcy Nicholson from Canadian Press.
Will the government be joining Nova Scotia in tabling legislation to reduce interprovincial trade barriers?
We're absolutely looking at that. We are engaging with internal trade barriers at two levels. One is around the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which is a topic of discussion taking place this week among the ministers responsible for internal trade. There's a list of exemptions under that free trade agreement that everybody's grappling with, removing those exemptions, as many as possible. And the other is, and to your question, through legislation, creating the possibility that the province could enter into bilateral agreements or agreements with a coalition of the willing of other provinces where we're willing to recognize each other's regimes in terms of free trade between our provinces. This is what I understand the approach from Nova Scotia is, and it's the approach that we're looking at as well, so that we don't have to wait for the federal government.
And a follow-up from Marcy.
A question about the upcoming budget. Will you be making budget cuts to some programs, or will we be planning for a larger deficit, or both?
So we are currently doing a review of every minister has received a letter from me, a mandate letter that begins with do a review of all of your programs, ensure that they're meeting the moment. We are not in 2017 anymore. The realities of 2025 are quite different. And that review is also taking place at the public service level. We have to ensure that we're on a path back to balance. And we have to ensure for British Columbians that we're spending responsibly, delivering those frontline services that they're counting on while reducing costs related to administration and so on. So that will be part of the discussion around the budget. With respect to other issues related to the budget, the finance minister will be speaking to that on budget day, and I very much look forward to her presentation.
Next, we have a question from Andrew McLeod, the Tyee.
Yeah, hi, Premier. One other specific budget question. There was a coroner's inquest into the death of Florence Gerard in January. She was a CLBC client. Recommendations included a bunch of things that would require more spending from CLBC. How likely is that to be reflected in this year's budget?
Yeah, the minister I know is very engaged on the issue of CLBC and their ability to deliver the level of service that British Columbians expect, that people are looked after and supported and treated with dignity. There is some important work ahead to do with CLBC on that, and I know the minister is very engaged on that. There's always the question of additional resources, additional money. And there's also the questions of management, oversight, and ensuring that the job is done properly. And so I know the minister is engaged on all those issues, and we're going to ensure that British Columbians are looked after if they're engaged with CLBC.
And to Andrew for a follow-up.
And BCGU's been calling to have CLBC brought back into government. What do you make of the proposal?
Well, we've got to make sure that the CLBC model works for the incredibly vulnerable people that they're charged with looking after. Clearly, there was a catastrophic and awful failure around Florence Gerard, and there have been other challenges in relation to CLBC. The minister is engaged with ensuring that CLBC delivers the kind of care that people deserve, and if we're unable to ensure that CLBC can do that, then we'll have to look at changes to the model. But right now, the focus is on getting CLBC on track and ensuring that people get the care they need.
Next, we have a question from Mark from BC Today.
Hi, Premier. Just to go back to this non-confidence motion, on Monday, your government introduced a motion that some have called a political trap, and it was largely a symbolic motion. And now there's this non-confidence motion. Do you expect this kind of political theater to continue throughout this session?
Yeah, I mean, I heard the opposition call a motion that said, we condemn the tariffs, we support targeting red states for a retaliatory response, we support a Team Canada approach to respond to the tariffs, and we stand up for BC and Canada. They called us putting that motion forward a trap. Not a trap to most British Columbians. Feels pretty intuitive that these are things that we would do to stand up for our province and our country. So if to the opposition, that's political theater and a trap, then yeah, they should expect more of that. We're waving the flag. We'll never be the 51st state. We're proud of BC. We're proud of Canada. We're going to stand together. We're going to fight the tariffs. And if that to them is, I don't know, I'm not sure, that's their business. For us, we know what we stand for.
And a follow-up from Mark.
I'm hoping you can comment on a decision just handed down by the BC Supreme Court in a case brought by the Trial Lawyers Association of BC. Basically, they had been asking for you to give testimony for discovery, and that is you're not going to be forced to give testimony in that. I was hoping you could comment on that decision and just on the case in general as to why why it's necessary or your government thought it was necessary to reorganize how legal oversight is done in the province.
Yeah, it's not unusual for petitioners or plaintiffs or applicants to try to seek to have politicians show up and testify. You've got to meet the burden that the court expects to call a politician to testify, and the applicants didn't meet the burden this time. In terms of legal services in the province generally, there is a goal that we have around all professionals in the province, whether it's lawyers or doctors or you name it, to ensure that they are accountable to the public. We've done significant governance reform around various categories of professionals to ensure that there's consistent, when you make a complaint in relation to an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor or a naturopath or whatever it is, that there is a reliable and consistent process, that the public is protected, and that the professionals are accountable to the public while maintaining their independence. And so that's the work we're doing with lawyers that is the subject of that matter, but it's also the work we're doing with professionals across the board.
That's all the time we have today. Thanks everyone for joining in.
Thank you very much.